1, I see a row of 3 tanks oriented roughly northwest to southeast.
Listen carefully, because this should not be possible. The United States Air Force operates a frontline combat bomber that first flew before Elvis Presley recorded his first song. A bomber that has already outlived every aircraft designed to replace it. A bomber that dropped bombs over Vietnam, over Iraq, over Afghanistan, and is now being upgraded to hunt Chinese warships across the largest ocean on Earth. And the craziest part, the plan is to keep flying it until 2050, which means the same basic airframe, the same giant swept wing, the same unmistakable silhouette, will have served in active combat for nearly 100 years. 100 years. No frontline bomber has ever done anything quite like that. Not at this scale, not for this long. The B-52 Stratofortress is not a museum piece, it is not a nostalgic symbol, it is not a relic the Air Force keeps around for air shows. It is a frontline weapon, and it just received the most important upgrade in its entire existence: new engines, new radar, and the ability to carry weapons that did not exist when this aircraft was already considered old. So, the question is not why America is still flying the B-52, the question is this: what does the United States know about this aircraft that China and Russia still cannot solve, and why is the answer more terrifying in 2026 than it was in 1955? By the end of this video, you will understand why the oldest bomber in the American inventory may be the one that scares Beijing the most. Here is the first thing most people get wrong about the B-52. They look at this aircraft and see age. 8 engines, a massive wing, a design that feels like it escaped from a Cold War documentary. What they miss is the math. Modern warfare does not ask how new an aircraft looks, it asks 3 brutal questions. What can it carry? How far can it go? How much damage can it do before the enemy stops it? And on those 3 questions, the B-52 still gives answers that make weapons designers uncomfortable. This aircraft can carry roughly 70,000 pounds of weapons. That is more than some aircraft weigh fully loaded. It can fly approximately 8,800 miles without refueling. With tanker support, it can reach virtually any point on Earth. And the weapons it can carry include conventional bombs, precision-guided munitions, long-range cruise missiles, and nuclear-capable weapons, the kind that force entire defense systems to completely rethink their planning. But here is the part that separates the B-52 from everything else: it does not have to fly over the target. Modern warfare changed the rules. Missiles changed the rules. And the B-52 changed with them. Instead of being a bomber that has to penetrate enemy airspace, it became something more dangerous, a flying launch platform that can stay outside the most dangerous defensive zones and still threaten targets hundreds, or thousands, of miles away. To China, that means a B-52 operating from Guam can already reach sensitive targets on the Chinese mainland with certain weapons without ever crossing the first island chain. To Russia, it means a B-52 operating from Europe, from the Arctic approach, or from bases across the Atlantic can project power across distances that make traditional air defense geometry extremely difficult. The shape is old. The math is not. Before we go deeper into why China and Russia still cannot ignore an aircraft designed to bomb the Soviet Union, subscribe to AeropediaTV. This channel is built for people who want to understand not just the aircraft, but the strategy, the geography, and the decisions that make old machines into modern threats. And what comes next is the part most people never connect: why the aircraft America built for nuclear doomsday became one of the most useful conventional weapons of the last 50 years. The B-52 was born in the early Cold War for one terrifying mission. Not Vietnam, not Iraq, not Afghanistan, not hunting Chinese ships across the Pacific. It was born to carry nuclear weapons all the way to the heart of the Soviet Union. Boeing's original design first flew in the early 1950s. By 1955, it officially entered service. From the beginning, this was not designed to be elegant. It was designed to be impossible to ignore. It had to carry enormous payloads. It had to fly distances that felt almost impossible at the time. It had to make the Soviet Union believe that any first strike would result in a response from aircraft already in the air, already on their way. That is what deterrence looked like in the nuclear age. But then history did something no planner had fully anticipated. The bomber designed for nuclear doomsday kept finding itself useful in wars that had nothing to do with nuclear weapons. Vietnam. Massive conventional bombing campaigns. Decades later, still relevant in Iraq.
Still launching missions in Afghanistan. Not as a museum piece. Not as a symbol. As a real combat aircraft adapted to new missions. That is the first secret of the B-52. It was never just one aircraft. It became a platform. And platforms survive when they can change. Every time the world changed, the B-52 changed just enough to stay in the fight. But now comes the question that every defense budget meeting eventually faces. If America has stealth bombers like the B-2 and the B-21, why spend billions upgrading something older than most people's grandparents? Picture a senior Air Force planner sitting across a table in the Pentagon, looking at a budget proposal that asks for billions of dollars to upgrade an aircraft that is already 70 years old. Call him Colonel Harris. Not his real name. But his problem is real. Harris has seen what happens when aging aircraft outlive their maintenance budgets. Parts become unavailable. Reliability drops. The aircraft spends more time grounded than airborne. And eventually, the aircraft retires itself. That was always the assumed fate of the B-52. But the numbers told a different story. The cost of keeping the B-52 flying, even with a major engine replacement program, is dramatically lower than the cost of building enough B-21 Raiders to replace everything the B-52 can do. The B-21 is extraordinary, but it is also expensive and will arrive slowly. The B-52 is already there, already operational, already carrying weapons. And with the right upgrades, it can carry the next generation of weapons too. So Harris and planners like him made a decision that would have seemed absurd in any other era. Give the old giant new organs. The new Rolls-Royce F130 engines replace 8 turbojets designed in the early Cold War with modern high-bypass turbofans that burn less fuel, require less maintenance, and extend the aircraft's operational life by potentially decades. The new radar modernization program replaces obsolete Cold War sensors with systems designed to work with the modern force. And then come the weapons. The B-52 has already been used as a test platform for hypersonic weapons like the AGM-183 ARRW. It is also tied to long-range anti-ship missiles like the LRASM, JASSM-ER standoff cruise missiles, and future weapons still in development. This is the part that changes the strategic calculation. The aircraft may be 70 years old, but what it can carry in 2026 did not exist when it was already considered aged. That is not nostalgia. That is a flying weapons platform that just got dramatically more dangerous. Imagine Chinese commanders looking at a map of the Pacific. The distances are enormous. This is not a small battlefield. It is a giant chessboard of islands, bases, ships, tankers, submarines, satellites, and missiles. In a crisis, China does not only worry about aircraft flying directly toward its coastline, it has to think about aircraft far away, aircraft that may never enter Chinese airspace but can still launch weapons toward targets that matter. A B-52 operating from Andersen Air Force Base in Guam is approximately 1,800 miles from Beijing. That sounds like a safe distance, until you realize the aircraft is carrying cruise missiles with ranges that make that distance irrelevant. The B-52 does not have to get close to be dangerous, it has to get close enough to launch. And that launch point may be outside the effective range of Chinese coastal defenses. That creates a planning nightmare that has no clean solution. If China pushes its air defense umbrella further out to sea, it stretches its forces and creates gaps. If it concentrates its defenses near the coastline, the B-52 simply launches from further away. If it tries to intercept the bomber before it reaches launch range, it has to project its own air power across hundreds of miles of contested ocean. Every option costs something. Every option creates a vulnerability somewhere else. And the B-52 does not even have to fly the mission alone. It works with fighters providing escort, tankers extending its range, submarines disrupting enemy communications, satellites and drones providing targeting data, electronic warfare aircraft suppressing defenses.
In that kind of coordinated package, the B-52 is not just a bomber. It is a weapons node in a much larger kill web, one that can carry more missiles per sortie than almost any other platform in the American inventory. That is why China cannot simply ignore an aircraft designed when Mao Zedong was still ruling a country trying to recover from decades of civil war. The world changed. The B-52 changed with it. China's problem did not. For Russia, the B-52 is not a strategic problem. It is a personal one. During the Cold War, Soviet air defense commanders built entire careers around one question: if the B-52s launch tonight, can we stop them?
Not one bomber. The fleet, hundreds of aircraft, coordinated, dispersed, carrying weapons that could end Soviet civilization in an afternoon. Soviet radar networks, Soviet interceptor regiments, Soviet surface-to-air missile batteries spread across 11 time zones. All of it built, in significant part, to answer one question about one American aircraft. The Cold War ended. The Soviet Union collapsed. The threat was supposed to disappear with it, but the B-52 did not disappear. Today, Russian military planners face a version of the same problem their Soviet predecessors faced, except now the bomber carries long-range cruise missiles that can be launched from outside Russian air defense coverage, future hypersonic-class weapons Russia has spent years trying to develop for itself, and conventional precision weapons that can strike command centers, radar sites, and military infrastructure without nuclear escalation. That flexibility is exactly what makes planning complicated. Is the aircraft nuclear? Conventional? Is it carrying cruise missiles, hypersonic weapons, or both? How many aircraft are involved? Where are the tankers? Where are the submarines operating in concert? Where are the electronic warfare aircraft already suppressing Russian radar networks? Russia has powerful air defenses. The S-400, the S-500. Layers of radar and interceptors. But even the most advanced air defense system has a fundamental problem. It can defend a zone. It cannot defend everywhere at once. And the B-52, operating as one node in a coordinated American strike package, does not need to penetrate the most defended zone. It needs to find the gap. For Russia, that is the nightmare. Not one bomber. The question of where all of them are, and what each one is carrying. The B-52 is a ghost from the Cold War that keeps appearing with new teeth. Now let us say something that most military aviation videos will not say. The B-52 is not perfect. It is not stealthy. An enemy radar can see it. A modern surface-to-air missile system at close range is a serious threat to it. Its electronic warfare systems, even upgraded, are not equivalent to what a fifth-generation aircraft carries. And it is expensive to operate. Even with new engines, it requires significant maintenance. Its crews require specialized training. Its logistics chain is complex. So why does the Air Force keep investing in it? Because war is not decided by the perfect weapon. It is decided by the available weapon, at the right range, carrying the right payload, at the moment it matters. The B-52 can carry more weapons per sortie than almost any other platform in the American inventory. It can stay airborne for hours. It can be refueled multiple times. It can coordinate with the entire joint force. And it can launch weapons that never require it to get close to the most dangerous airspace. No other aircraft in the American inventory combines that range, that payload, and that flexibility at anything close to the B-52's operating cost. Not even the B-21. The Raider is stealthier, it can penetrate deeper. But it carries less per sortie and will arrive in limited numbers. The B-52 and the B-21 are not competitors. They are complementary. The Raider opens the door, the Stratofortress walks through it carrying everything that matters. That is the uncomfortable truth about modern air power. Sometimes the old machine still does something the new machine cannot fully replace. Back to Colonel Harris. After the budget meeting. After the briefing rooms. After the arguments about cost per flight hour and the number of B-21s on order. He looks at the operational schedule for the coming months. B-52 missions over the Pacific. Long-range deterrence patrols. Exercises with Allied air forces. Weapons qualification tests for the next generation of standoff missiles. An aircraft that first flew when his father was a child is still flying the missions that matter most. That is the B-52 story. Not nostalgia.
not sentiment. Not the Air Force unable to let go of the past. Strategy. The United States made a calculation: maintain a platform that already works, upgrade the weapons it carries, and keep it in the fight until something better can do the same job at scale, at range, and at cost. Nothing else can yet. A bomber designed to threaten the Soviet Union in 1955 is now being prepared to contest Chinese naval power across the Indo-Pacific in 2035. Presidents changed. Enemies changed. Wars changed. Technology changed. The B-52 kept flying. And when the first B-21 Raiders arrive at Ellsworth Air Force Base, the stealth bomber designed to finally replace it in the most dangerous missions, the Stratofortress will still be airborne. Flying the long-range missions. Carrying the heavy loads. Creating the problems that stealth alone cannot fully solve.
Because the most terrifying bomber in the world is not always the newest one. Sometimes it is the one that has spent 70 years learning exactly how to survive. The B-52 is not terrifying because it is new. It is terrifying because everything built to replace it arrived too late, cost too much, or came in numbers too small. And the old giant is still in the sky. If you want to understand what comes next, the aircraft designed to finally take over the B-52's most dangerous missions, and why China is already trying to find its weakness, subscribe to AeropediaTV and watch the next video on screen, where we break down why 145 B-21 Raiders may be the most important procurement decision America has made since the Cold War. The Ghost is not done, it just got a new engine.